Mike Radich here, and I'm now joined on the phone by MMA veteran Jordan Smith. Jordan, how are you?
I'm tired, bud. I just got done running sprints up a nice steady hill and missed your first call, and I feel like a jerk. Sorry I missed you, bud.
No, it's okay.
It didn't take that long.
I know you got a big fight coming up for Rage in the Cage, so no worries. Glad to have you here. Jordan, who are you training with for this fight? Are you training with Victory MMA?
I don't know how Sherdog got Victory MMA. I've never even heard of Victory MMA. I've actually petitioned them to change that. I'm with One Hit MMA with Aldo Orezia and Gustavo Rodriguez, right in Layton, Utah, just south of Ogden.
And how long have you been training with them?
I've been with Aldo almost my whole fight career, my whole professional career. Aldo Orezia has been my head coach for 6 years now.
Yeah, I was wondering about that because I never heard of Victory MMA and I never heard them associated with you, so I just had to ask, do you still train with Blackouts? Are you still part of that team, or have you moved away from there and you haven't trained there in a while? Because I know you used to train there, so have you still been working with those guys?
Oh, I still train with Blackouts when I get a chance to go to Los Angeles. If I've got time for a fight camp to be in Los Angeles, then I'll go down there. They're my management company, Tough Media Incorporated. They own Blackouts, and Blackouts is kind of a private gym for fighters, Blackout fighters, and the people they want in their training camp with them. So I'll go down there for the occasional fight camp, but my main training is done in Layton, Utah.
I see. Jordan, you're currently on a 3-fight losing streak. Your last 3 fights have all been under the Bellator banner. I'm just curious, I know that this is probably something where you kind of don't want to relive because these fights didn't go your way, but what went wrong for you in these fights? Let's start with the Dave Rickles fight. That was a fight where you were knocked out in 22 seconds. Is it just that fight you got caught there? Is that really all there is to say about that fight? You just got caught?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of excuses you can make up if you want, but really I did get caught, and because he caught me with a nice punch right away and put me on my ass and kept on me the whole time, and then the ref stopped it, you know. It was a 2-week notice fight, and I dropped 26 pounds in 2 weeks to get to it, and then the week before I popped my ankle my last hard day of sparring, and I remember thinking about it after I threw an inside leg kick that kind of hurt it. I stepped back and hopped on it a little bit, and then that's when he decided to jump in and start swinging. And, you know, there's a lot of crap you could say, try and make yourself feel better about it, but at the end of the day, you just got caught, and it happens to everybody.
Your second fight for Bellator was against Andrei Koreshkov. What happened in that fight? What went wrong for you in that one?
I think the decision was bull myself. Not only did he hold my glove when I had his back for 3 minutes in the second round, but I felt like I won the second and the third round, if not the first as well. I had 4 submission attempts in the first round. I had a takedown in the second round, and I had his back for 3 minutes. I almost finished the rear naked choke. The only reason he survived is because he had his thumb in my glove, and the ref didn't even give him a warning. Needless to say, he didn't take a point from him. Even after pulling his own glove, or his hand out of the glove, I think I beat Koreshkov, and I think if I fought him again, I would beat him again. You know, this time I just wouldn't leave it in the hands of the judges.
Your last fight for Bellator and your most recent fight was against Jesse Juarez in February. You lost the fight by split decision. I personally had scored the fight for you. I scored the first round and the third round for you. I thought you had won that fight. How did you score the fight?
That's exactly how I scored it. I didn't know. I'm always harder on myself during the fight than I am after the fight. You know, if I'm not knocking the guy out, I don't feel like I'm doing as good as I could be. But after the fight, I got to watch, and I couldn't believe, me and my management company couldn't believe the decision. So we actually requested the fight card from the commission, and they gave us the fight card. And you wouldn't believe it, but the one judge that gave me the fight didn't even give me the first round. It gave me the second and the third round. And in the second round, if you remember, I almost got choked out in an arm triangle.
Exactly, yep.
Yeah, and then another judge gave him all 3 rounds, and then one judge gave me the first and him the second and the third, which is probably the fairest judgment of the three judges. So the argument was that the third round was kind of up in the air. Could have gone either way. I won the first and he won the second. And again, I felt not only a little cheated by the judges, because when I lost against Koreshkov by decision, I was the one doing the taking down. This time I lost, and I was the one beating the crap out of him on our feet, and he was the one taking me down. I still lost the decision. I feel like my game plan always turns out to be the wrong one for the judges. And then on top of that, I wasn't fighting like myself. I was in kill mode the whole time. I wasn't thinking. Now, I fought other good wrestlers like Josh McDonald and Carl Parisian, and I knew they were going to try and take me down. And for whatever reason, I couldn't stop trying to take Juarez's head off the whole time. Even though I knew he was going to try and take me down, I never sat down on my punches and started really concentrating on takedown defense. I was always moving forward and throwing punches, and it wasn't smart. It wasn't a smart game plan. I didn't adapt like I should have.
Of the three fights, which one is the most disappointing one? Is it maybe the Rickles fight because you were finished before you could really even get started, or is it the other two because those are fights that you feel that you should have won?
It's the other two. If you ask any real fighter, would you rather get knocked out in 15 seconds, or would you rather get dominated for 15 minutes? When you go into the cage and a guy catches you with a good punch and you're out, you can tell yourself, yeah, he caught me. He was a better man that night, but he's not better than me. But if you go out and get dominated and there's just nothing you can do to somebody for 15 whole minutes, and you know he's better than you, that's like a horrible feeling to have your will broken. And for me, those other two are harder because they didn't dominate me by any means, but I felt like I had the better night. And the judges didn't think so. So they're way more disappointing than getting knocked out. Getting knocked out is a fear in the back of your mind because it can happen to anybody, but it's not as disappointing as just getting dominated by a fighter.
Do you still have a contract with Bellator, or did you just have a 3-fight deal and you fulfilled those 3 fights and you no longer have a contract with them? What is your current contract status with Bellator?
It kind of sucked because I had a 4-fight deal, and they're never guaranteed by any means. But after the Juarez decision, the fight was so exciting. Everybody said it was the fight of the night. And Bjorn, from the owner of Bellator, actually came into the locker room shortly after my fight when I was, hanging my head and pouting about it. And he made it a point to tell me that he was going to keep me on for the 4th fight. And then in about end of May, they gave us my walking papers and let me go. So that was disappointing, but I can fight back to it. I just got to get my mind right and get to the next level again.
The Jesse Juarez fight was in February. Now you're going to have a fight coming up in a couple weeks on August 23rd. So from February to August, what are some things that you've been working on during this time, both physically and mentally, to try to make you a better fighter?
My biggest problem, I believe, my coaches believe, and my managers believe, that I got all the talent and all the skills necessary to be winning fights at the upper level. It's the mental game that I've been really working on. Excuse me. If I can get my mental edge back, get back to the killer that I was, and not fight angry, stupid, like I did against Juarez, and get taken down too much, then I'll be unstoppable, So I've been talking with my sports psychologist, Coach Paul, who's one of the best in the world. He's been with me since shortly before the fight with Koreshkov. So we're working on a lot of things to get my head right. And I just have to let myself be me in the cage and not inhibit myself, with fears or distractions. And once I let myself be myself, then it's going to be an amazing thing to watch.
Coming up on August 23rd, you're going to be fighting Colton Vaughn. Originally, you were supposed to fight Jason Flynn at middleweight. It was actually supposed to be kind of a short notice fight for you because you weren't his original opponent. Now you're taking on Colton Vaughn. Is this fight going to be at 185, 170, or some sort of catch weight? What weight is this fight going to be fought at?
They told me it's still at 185. I don't think Vaughn has ever fought at 70. So we're still at 85, and I had four weeks notice, and he had 3 weeks notice. So we're both short notice fighters, but we're professionals, and I don't think it'll be a problem, especially not for me to make it to 185.
Mm-hmm. Is that your plan going forward, is to fight at middleweight, or are you just taking this fight because that was the fight was offered to you and that's the weight that was offered to you, or are you thinking about going back up there?
It's a little bit of both. My head coach, Aldo, he thinks that maybe I've lost something cutting to 170, and we're going to use this fight as kind of a check and see if I should be back at 185. So I fought 205 starting out. I was the throwdown light heavyweight champion of Utah for 2 years before I decided to start cutting to 185. But when I was fighting at 205, I was every opponent I had was bigger than me. Mm-hmm. And then I started cutting to 185 and started fighting a little higher competition levels. And then all of those guys started being bigger than me as well. And my body kept shrinking naturally, so I just decided to make the cut to 170. I think I fought Josh Berkman at a catch weight of 180, and then after that it was 170 the rest of the way out.
Mm-hmm. Colton Vaughn is going to be your opponent for August 23rd. How much do you know about him, and how much film have you studied of him in preparation for this fight?
I've seen film. I've actually seen him fight personally. Mm-hmm. He's had a few fights in Utah. Obviously, I didn't know who he was when I was watching him play back then, but he's kind of a brawler. He doesn't have really crisp technique stand-up wise. He's got some decent punches that look like they could hurt if he catches me with them. I think he's going to try and take me down more than anything. So I'm going to hurt him standing up. And this time, unlike the Jesse Juarez fight, I want to make sure that I don't get taken down too much.
Mm-hmm. If anything, what are you looking to maybe showcase or, I don't know, maybe prove to maybe fans, yourself, your coaches, whoever it might be? Are you looking to showcase anything in this fight? Some improvements? Anything along those lines?
You know, there's so many things that I'm capable of doing that I haven't shown in a fight yet. Even in 23, whatever pro fights I've had. I'm not putting any pressure on myself to like be spectacular, because every fight I have, even when I lose, is exciting for the fans. But what I want to do is just give myself permission to be a little bit more like myself every fight. Just like I was talking about earlier, I need to let myself go instead of being inhibited by fears and emotions and stuff like that while I'm in the cage. And if I just let myself be myself and fight like I can fight, then it's going to be an exciting knockout or an excellent submission.
Mm-hmm. When you've gotten on the big stages, that's kind of where you've run into a lot of trouble. When you've fought on the local scene, you've had a lot of success, but when you've jumped up to bigger shows like a Bellator, you had a brief stint with the Ultimate Fighter, you haven't performed your best. Is it just totally mental, or has some of it been game plans or conditioning? Has there been any other factors leading into some of these losses, or is it just totally mental for you?
Your guess is as good as mine. Mm. I felt really good for the Koreshkov fight, and I thought I was going to beat him. I still think I did beat him. I felt like I should have submitted him with the Peruvian necktie, should have finished him with the guillotine, should have finished him with the rear naked choke. And after fighting him, I feel like I could beat him just standing up now. The Dave Rickles fight, I was totally mentally there for that, and I got caught. The tough fight, I don't know. There was a lot. You going into the house, there's a lot of pressure. Anyways, I got caught with a crazy knee that knocked me out, and maybe that was my first loss ever. Mm-hmm. And maybe that was when the mental crap started for me, when I realized I wasn't invincible. Mm-hmm. But your guess is as good as mine. You try to tell yourself you're brave and that nothing's going to happen to you for every fight, and get pumped up for it. But in the end of the night, anything can happen because it's a fight. So. Mm-hmm. You just do the best you can.
Mm-hmm. The old saying is your next fight is always your most important fight. With you being on a 3-fight losing streak, does that go double for you this time around? Is this a must-win for you?
Oh, yeah. every fight's a must-win. But I'm ready to get back on the winning streaks. I had never lost twice in a row, and before I lost 3 times in a row, so I don't like losing. Nobody likes losing. And, yeah, it's time to win again, and I'm going to, so and it's going to be fun. Back to having fun fighting instead of worrying about losing and crying about it later.
Before you signed with Bellator, you were fighting very consistently. I think you averaged anywhere from 3 to 8 fights a year, so you were very active in that time before you signed with Bellator. Are you hoping to get back to that? Are you hoping to fight as much as possible over the course of this year? What's your plans in terms of fights?
I'd like to get as many fights as I can by the end of the year. Definitely one more after this fight, maybe 2 if I can squeeze it in. Kind of depends on what comes up. I didn't like not fighting very much with Bellator. They tend to put people on the shelf a lot. So after they let me go, it was kind of a good thing for me because I can choose who I want to fight and win, and instead of waiting for them to tell me when. Now we've got Japan and Russia on the line for possible fights. I'm taking this one in Idaho. LA's got fights that I can go to. You know, we'll just see which kind of opponents show up and what kind of money's out there, and my managers will decide what's best for me from here.
Is it pretty safe to say that RFA and showdown fights, those are 2 very good options for you? Should nothing materialize in Russia or Japan, those are pretty much kind of a lock for you to be on because you fought for showdown fights a long time. And then RFA, Ed Soares, he's running RFA, so are those a pretty safe option for you?
Yes, those are good. Those are really good organizations to fight for. RFA is getting huge under Ed Soares, and Showdown's always been the biggest show in Utah. And they have really good cards, and they pay well, and they're good to you. They treat their fighters right. So if they call me and they've got a good opponent, then I'll probably go for that. But I'd rather take international fights. I like to make MMA make me travel the world. Always nice.
Yeah, how many times have you fought internationally? I think, looking at your record, I can only think of 2 off the top of my head. Is that the number, or is there more?
No, that's it. I've fought twice in Brazil.
Yep.
I've fought all over the United States, in Missouri, Washington, D.C., Washington State, Michigan, and I just enjoy traveling. I'm one of those people who, if they could afford it, would be traveling all the time, but I have to make my job make me travel.
Yeah, I hear you.
Japan, yeah, so if Japan's a place that I could go fight, then I'll definitely take that, and Russia as well. I owe Ruski a good punch in the face, so...
Jordan, what's the game plan for your career? Are you hoping to reestablish yourself, get some wins, get back to the place that you were once at, get people again, talking about you? Because I remember after that Carl Parisian fight, even though you had the Tim McKenzie fight, your stock was at an all-time high. Is that the plan here, to get some wins and get your name back, and then maybe make it back to Bellator? Or are you kind of just, past that, or trying to, make it maybe to the UFC or something like that? What's the game plan for your career?
Yeah, every fighter's dream is to make it to the UFC.
Yeah.
And that hasn't changed for me since I started this. If you're not going up, then there's really no reason to be fighting. I know a lot of fighters that just kind of get into not taking fighting very seriously and then fight just for paychecks, but if I'm not going up and going somewhere, then I'm not going to be fighting anymore, basically. So that's definitely still the plan. I've fought some of the best in the world, and I've trained with the best in the world, and I'm coached by some of the best in the world. And these guys believe that I'm capable of being the champion of the world. And if they didn't believe in me, then I wouldn't believe in myself, and I wouldn't be fighting again. 3 losses in a row does a lot of shit to your head as a fighter, so... They've got me pointing in the right direction again, and my head's screwed on straight. I'm going to start getting wins under my belt again, start taking big fights, and start climbing my way back to the top. You got to be champion of the world someday, or nothing, If you don't want to be the champion of the world anymore and you don't have the desire, then it's just time to retire.
Jordan, on August 23rd, how do you end this 3-fight losing streak? How do you defeat Colton Vaughn?
I'd like This is funny that you guys always ask these questions. How do you see the perfect ending?
Yeah, how do you see
I had to tell you a secret. I told my head coach, my brain coach, my life coach, as I tell him, my sports psychologist, Coach Paul, I told him as soon as I took the fight, I had a daydream about a spinning back fist that knocks out Colton, or at least drops him, and then I finish him with punches. Spinning back fist. How do you like that?
Yeah, that's a different dream. Usually,
the vision was pretty specific, so I just went with it.
Yeah, I like it. Jordan, real quick before I let you go, do you have any sponsors you'd like to thank, and is there anything you'd like to say to the fans?
I always got to thank Rockwell Watches. They're the best out of Utah. They've got some sick watches. Check them out at rockwelltime.com. Got to thank No Weak Links and Tough Media Incorporated and Thrive Foods Direct. If you're vegan and you'd like to have some delicious meals prepared for you and sent to your house, check them out at thrivefoodsdirect.com. And to my fans, it's going to be an exciting fight again, and I got to get back to the winning streak. So get ready to watch a really exciting one with my hand raised at the end instead of the other guys.
Jordan, thank you for taking the time to talk. I really appreciate it. Good luck August 23rd at Rage in the Cage, Idaho against Colton Vaughn.
Hey, thanks a lot, Mike. You guys have a good night.